doesn't matter how big your company is or how well-liked your brand might be. When a crisis hits, all bets are off. Just ask the executive blindsided by a whistleblower email at 9 a.m. or the startup founder who wakes up to a social media firestorm they didn't see coming. Crises rarely come with advance warning, yet the fallout, whether it's financial, reputational, or legal, can unfold fast and last for years. And despite this, most business leaders still don't have a real crisis plan. According to global surveys, fewer than half of executives feel ready to handle the most common threats, like cybersecurity breaches, financial shocks, or even another pandemic. That's where this summary comes in. Drawing on real events involving brands, political figures, nonprofits, and sports leagues, it unpacks how leaders respond under pressure and what separates smart moves from painful missteps. You'll find clear examples and actionable insights designed to help you recognize risk, build resilience, and stay composed when everything is on the line. Whether you're running a company, advising one, or protecting its reputation, this is your chance to learn how to manage a crisis before it manages you. When a crisis strikes, especially one you've already tried to prevent, the worst move is hesitation. Business leaders and PR professionals need to act fast, speak clearly, and show the public that decisive action is being taken. Airbnb's response to 2 tragic shootings at party rentals offers a real-world case study of how to handle a crisis well and what can happen even when you think you've already closed the loopholes. In 2019, a shooting at an unauthorized Halloween party left 5 dead at an Airbnb rental in California. In response, the company banned party houses, introduced stricter guest screening, and implemented neighborhood support tools. But that wasn't the end of the story. 3 years later, another deadly shooting happened at a large Airbnb party in Pittsburgh, leaving 2 people dead and several injured. Once again, Airbnb had to step up, and this time, it followed a clear, well-organized playbook that other companies would do well to study. First, issue a statement immediately, express empathy, take a firm stance, and show solidarity with the affected community. Airbnb condemned the violence, shared condolences, and reinforced its party ban policy. Second, show what you're doing, not just what you're saying. Airbnb explained it had reached out to local authorities, permanently banned the guest who booked the property, and was exploring legal action. This level of transparency helps rebuild public trust. Third, share useful information. Airbnb clarified that the party was unauthorized and that the host had clearly stated a no-party policy in the listing. Explaining these details helps shift the focus from blame to understanding the breakdown and the fix. Fourth, restate your policies. Just because you've said something before doesn't mean people remember. Airbnb reminded the public of its global party ban, its occupancy cap, and the use of tech to flag high-risk bookings, especially from younger users attempting to rent entire homes locally. Fifth, keep improving. Airbnb highlighted tools like a 24/7 safety team, real-time neighborhood reporting, and user background checks. These aren't just PR talking points, they're proof of ongoing efforts to prevent repeat incidents. The biggest takeaway here? Hoping for the best isn't enough. Smart leaders plan for the worst. Get your team together and map out worst-case scenarios. Develop clear crisis response plans, and don't wait for a real emergency to test them. Run drills, review and update protocols regularly, and just as important, keep reminding the people who could trigger a crisis what rules they need to follow. A fast, confident response can't erase a crisis, but it can protect your reputation, reassure stakeholders, and show that your company is committed to doing better. When bad press comes from inside your own company, it hits harder and spreads faster. In 2021, a Burger King restaurant in Lincoln, Nebraska, made headlines for a dramatic walkout. Every employee quit, and they made sure the public knew it. Their message, "We all quit. Sorry for the inconvenience," was posted on the restaurant's roadside sign and quickly went viral. This wasn't just a staffing issue. It was a reputational crisis born from burnout, poor conditions, and what staff described as serious management failures. The kitchen was reportedly so hot that one employee landed in the hospital. It wasn't an isolated moment of frustration. It was a signal that something was broken, and nobody at the top was listening. The lesson for business leaders and crisis managers: you can't fix what you don't see, and the public won't care what your brand values are if the lived experience on the ground tells a different story. This type of crisis is less about what you say in the moment and more about what you've failed to hear. Rage quitting may seem sudden, but it's usually the end of a long, ignored buildup. It often comes from teams in low-wage, high-pressure roles, exactly the kind of roles that make up more than half of the U.S. workforce. So what do smart companies do differently? Well, they get ahead of the story before it becomes one. Monitor employee sentiment just like you monitor customer feedback. Exit interviews, internal surveys, anonymous feedback tools aren't HR tick boxes. They're early warning systems. If you're surprised by a walkout, you weren't paying attention. Second, make sure your crisis plans don't just focus on external threats like lawsuits or product recalls. A crisis that starts inside the break room can reach the front page just as fast. That means building internal flashpoints, like staff protests, mass resignations, or whistleblowing, into your training and simulations. Third, don't rely on corporate messaging alone. People want to hear from leadership, not just a spokesperson. But be careful. Internal emails, memos, and team calls can all leak. Say only what you're prepared to see quoted online. And finally, don't disappear. In the Burger King case, the company's press channels were out of date and initial responses were vague. That's a problem. If you're not telling your own story, someone else will, and they'll tell it their way. When your staff walk out, the message is loud and clear. If you weren't listening before, now's the time to start. When a crisis is driven by culture, not a single bad actor, the solution can't just be a one-time apology or investigation. It demands a full reset. The National Women's Soccer League faced this reality in 2022 when a scathing independent report confirmed what players had been saying for years. Abuse by coaches was widespread, complaints were routinely ignored, and the leadership culture, from teams to governing bodies, allowed the problem to fester. This wasn't a PR misstep or an isolated scandal. It was a slow-building breakdown of trust. Players had spoken up, walked out, and demanded reform. Still, it took an external investigation led by a former U.S. attorney to expose how deeply embedded the issues were. Reports had been dismissed. Coaches with known abuse allegations were quietly hired elsewhere. Systems meant to protect players simply didn't work. For anyone in leadership, PR, or crisis management, this is a textbook case of what happens when warning signs are ignored. Not because no one saw them, but because no one acted on them. The point here isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about how deeply and publicly you need to go to rebuild credibility when trust collapses. Quiet reforms behind closed doors aren't enough. Issuing a report isn't enough. You have to change how your organization listens, investigates, disciplines, and most of all, how it values the people most at risk. In other words, it's not just about rooting out bad individuals. You have to rewire the culture that allowed those individuals to thrive. That means creating environments where people feel safe calling out problems early and where those concerns are taken seriously, no matter who they're about. It means establishing clear, transparent consequences. And it means making sure leaders don't just respond after the damage is done. They need to be proactive in preventing it in the first place. Business leaders in any industry should be asking hard questions. If a serious complaint comes in, would your team know how to handle it? Would they escalate it appropriately? Would the person reporting it feel supported or sidelined? Are the policies in place actually working, or are they just there for show? So remember, when culture is the problem, culture has to be the solution, and culture starts at the top. When public trust is on the line, strong branding can be your company's greatest defense. Political campaigns prove this time and again. Presidential candidates operate under constant scrutiny, with every word, mistake, or scandal instantly amplified. Yet the most successful ones stay standing because their brand is clear, memorable, and trusted. Business leaders can learn a lot from the way candidates craft and protect their public image. Start with clarity. The best campaign slogans are short, sticky, and speak directly to what people care about. Think of "Yes, we can," or Make America Great Again. These aren't just taglines, they're rallying cries. Brands should aim for the same level of instant recognition and emotional impact. If your mission or message takes a paragraph to explain, it's too complicated. Next, keep it real. Voters can tell when a candidate is faking it. The same goes for customers. If your values are just words on a website, people will spot the disconnect. The strongest brands are those where what you say matches how you act, every time, across every channel. Storytelling is another key tool. Politicians win hearts through powerful personal stories, not policy spreadsheets. Businesses should do the same. Share real customer experiences. Let employees tell their stories. Turn abstract values into moments people can picture and remember. Understanding your audience is non-negotiable. Good candidates campaign differently in Iowa than they do in LA, and smart brands tailor their messaging too. That means listening, testing, adjusting, and staying in tune with your customers as their needs shift. Relevance isn't a one-time achievement. It's a moving target. Consistency might be the most underrated ingredient of all. A successful political brand doesn't zigzag. Every speech, gesture, and soundbite reinforces the core message. For businesses, this means making sure every product, every post, every customer interaction strengthens, not confuses, your brand identity. It's not just the marketing department's job. It's everyone's job. And here's something most political teams understand better than many companies. Branding is data-driven. Behind every poster and rally is a wall of polling, sentiment analysis, and A/B testing. Businesses should be doing the same, tracking what lands, what's ignored, and what moves the needle. That's how you adjust fast, fix blind spots, and measure real impact. The final takeaway? In a crisis, trust is currency. A strong brand makes sure you've banked enough of it before the storm hits. No one likes to imagine worst-case scenarios, but in crisis management, denial isn't a strategy. The most resilient companies aren't the ones that avoid every disaster. They're the ones that plan for them, respond swiftly, and recover stronger. Crisis readiness is less about having a single perfect plan and more about developing a mindset, one that blends preparation, flexibility, and accountability. It starts with risk. You need to know what could go wrong before it does. This isn't just about generic threats. You need to identify specific triggers that apply to your sector. For an airline, that might be a safety incident. For a finance firm, fraud. For any business, it could be harassment, cyber attacks, or product failure. If you know your risks, you can take steps to reduce them before they turn into headlines. Reducing risk means doing the boring but essential things right. Good governance, clear policies, robust training, and smart hiring. These are quiet investments that pay off when the pressure's on. Being ready means having a crisis plan that fits your organization, not something pulled from a template. It should be tailored, realistic, and understood by everyone who might need to use it. But planning alone isn't enough. You also need redundancies, backup plans for when the first response doesn't cut it. Think of it like layers of safety nets. If Plan A fails, you don't want to be improvising Plan B live on national TV. Once a crisis hits, good decisions depend on good information. That's where research comes in. You need to gather the facts quickly. What happened, who's involved, what's at risk, and update that information constantly. The sharper your picture of the situation, the better your response will be. But no plan survives first contact unless it's been rehearsed. Crisis drills might feel awkward, but they build muscle memory. When the real thing happens, your team won't freeze. They'll act. When it's time to act, react decisively. A crisis isn't a moment for slow approvals or half measures. Know what will trigger your response plan and who's responsible for what. Don't figure it out on the fly. Communication is critical. Reach out to the people who need to hear from you. Staff, customers, regulators, partners, and keep them informed. Silence creates confusion. Transparency builds trust. And once the dust settles, recovery needs to be more than an afterthought. How will you rebuild, reopen, reassure? The return to normal needs its own plan too. Finally, remember what others have gone through. Their mistakes are there for you to avoid. Their wins are there for you to learn from. Crisis management isn't just about putting out fires. It's about making sure you don't keep starting the same ones.